Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 10, The Legends, and I am excited to be joined by a true legend, not just a legendary coach, but a legendary man. When I was a first-year head coach, he took the time to stop and talk to me and be good to me, and he's been good to me ever since. He won over 216 games. Well, he won 216 games, had a 60% winning percentage, won a state championship as a head coach. Coach Steve Pennington, thanks for being on with me.
Chris, it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to your questions and have an opportunity to reconnect in a format that I think is pretty special. And really, I applaud you uh, for what you do on this podcast and promote not only football coaches that my age or older, but yet at the same time promote high school football and which this state loves dearly. I can tell you that, and you know that as well as I do. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, sir. Well, Coach, I'm going to ask you just like I ask everybody, where'd you grow up and go to school?
I grew up in Louisville, which is about 45, 50 miles south of Augusta on US 1, and went to Louisville High School, played for one wonderful coach, Coach Isaiah Thomas, and we had some good years during that time at Louisville High. One game still sticks in our craw. We were 9-0, and Aquinas was in our region, and we played over at Butler Stadium that night. And you may recall, Tony Dakin was on that team, and he played linebacker, and I think he was a fullback or running back, but I think he went on to Georgia Tech. But it was a tight ball game. They were pretty doggone good that year as well, and lo and behold, we thought we got a safety because we had them backed up and toward their end zone, and to this day, we still believe we tackled the ball behind the line of scrimmage, but the officials saw otherwise. And so we lost that ball game by 2 points, and that was a tough pill to swallow. But other than that, Coach Thomas, at that time, we were going through integration in 1970. That was a whole different mindset for society as a whole, especially here in the South. But this man, he didn't see color, and he loved every player. He expected everyone to be at their best. And he did a great job, Chris, of laying out the expectations, because if he laid them out, he knew how he could measure if we were meeting those expectations or not. And but one thing I learned from him just by playing is that, hey, details matter, and they do. In the smallest nature, they matter. And so he was dead set making sure that we were fundamentally sound. And he had some good coaches that certainly knew how to coach those things as well. And so that's where I got started. And it was 4 good years at Louisville High School when I played ball there.
Well, what all did you play besides football? Because I know you probably played a little bit of everything.
Well, interesting you say that. Yeah, I played football. I wasn't too good of a basketball player, but I did play because I played more so because our coach Isaiah Thomas was the head basketball coach too. And so sure enough, I mean, I enjoyed it. I really did. It kept me involved with other players that left the football field and played basketball and too. And heck, as coaches, one of the things that probably drives us to do what we do or have done in the coaching world is that we're competitive people. And, I'm retired now, but I'm still a competitor. That's why I come watch Georgia Southern practice and watch those coaches work. And I would say right now, for the practice that I've come to, which is about 6 now, one thing I observed here under Coach Helton's staff is these coaches coach. There's no laying around or whatever. I mean, they are pushing, 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 second by second, minute by minute, because they know too a wrong step will cost you a first down, or a missed block might cost you a touchdown. And so, I don't know. I just like being out here because I can tell you what, Coach Helton runs these practices. They're going to compete offense against defense basically every time. And he's instilling, again, just a competitive spirit. I don't know. I just find some energy in doing that. And not only that, I find great appreciation in it, because the more competitive you are, the better chance you're going to be successful. And in the end, you'll win a lot of football games.
Coach, where did you go on to college?
I graduated in Louisville in '75, and then Statesboro is basically my second home, because I came to Georgia Southern in '75. And Chris, honestly, when I came here, my mindset, my game plans was that I was going to go to seminary. And at that time, it was Georgia Southern College with only about 6,000 students, which I really liked. And now, heck, just last year, they had over 6,000 freshmen enrolled. They had more freshmen last year than we had in the whole entire school from '75 to '79.
Well, you're the first
And
one that said they were going into the seminary. I always ask people, did you get in the wrong line to become a coach? Were you going to be an accountant, or were you going to be a doctor? And you know, some guys, they knew they wanted to coach, and some guys, they thought they wanted to be in business. But you're the first one I've had that said they wanted to be a preacher.
well, and I take that as a compliment. That's good. So at that time, we had advisors, and so you'd go meet with the advisor, and he would basically help set up your schedule. And he asked me, he says, "Well, Steve, what do you want to pursue? What are you looking for as a career?" And I told him then, I said, "Well, I'm interested in maybe going to seminary and getting into the ministry." And he says, "Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to uh, I've got 3 history classes here that I got you set up for." And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I just graduated from high school. I'm going to college. I'm still trying to learn the ropes about it. And doggone, now I got 3 history classes with 3 different professors. And I just said, I just had a good talk with the Lord, and I said, "Hey, Lord, you're in your sovereignty. You lay out a plan for us, and I'm trusting you." So that's how we got started. And then so I went to those three history classes every day. And after probably about 3-4 weeks, Chris, I don't say I had doubts, but I don't know if it's Satan working on me or not. But I just started having a good conversation with the Holy Spirit, which was God within me, and I was asking in prayer. I needed confidence that this is still what the Lord had in store for me and what my calling may be. But I'd always finish the prayer by saying, "If God, again, in your sovereignty, if you have something else that you could use me in the ministry, would you allow the Holy Spirit to reveal that to me?" And sure enough, within a week's time, I don't know where I was or what I was doing, but there was just all of a sudden this light that came on, which I say it was the Holy Spirit. And he said, "Steve, here's your answer. I've got a place where you can fulfill a ministry for me and be a light upon this world and the salt of the earth." He said, "I can use you in a classroom and on a field."
Absolutely.
And I mean, let me tell you, Uh, for those who hear this, if I cannot just say how great it has been to have a relationship with my Lord Jesus Christ. And I had a friend tell me, I met him down the coast. I've been doing some inshore fishing, and he just drove up on a bicycle, and the guy and I had been fishing. We were working on our rods and wheels and getting ready for the next day. And he was one heck of a man, just as nice as can be. And moved from Atlanta, living on the marsh down there, and uh, just pleasant to be around. And we got to talking. I mean, next thing you know, it got dark. We didn't finish fixing our rod and reels, and he says, "Guys, I've enjoyed it in talking with y'all." He said, "But I want to share one thing with you because we'd already talked about some spiritual things there." He loved the Lord, and he had a lot of success in his career in Atlanta, and even he was still working with that company while he was down here and on the coast. He said, "And one thing I want to leave you with," and he said, "My greatest claim to fame is the undeserved grace that I have received from my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." That hit me like a ton of bricks, Chris. And he and I became best friends. He would give you the shirt off his back. He loved the Lord, would do anything for you. And unfortunately, he got ill, and a couple of years later, and then he was in Emory Hospital, and he told his son he was ready to go. He was ready to go meet the Lord. And to my delight, he told his son, he said, "I want Steve Pennington to have words at my celebration of life." He didn't call it a funeral service. And what an honor that was to to share him. And I share that story because Chris, I I've been so blessed. And going back to that answered prayer that he revealed to me, I have a place for you in a classroom and on the field. Well, I graduated in 79 with my education degree. I go and teach in Louisville. I had a middle school science class and math class. I love teaching. I love teaching. It was fun. And I was assistant coach with a good friend of mine who was a head coach, and which I was wanting to do. But my perception of what coaching was about didn't meet what that perception was. And I don't say it's confused. In a way, I was a little disappointed. And I said, "Well, if this is going to be like this, I'm not so sure." So I finished that year in Louisville, my first year teaching. And I called a good friend here that I was in undergraduate school with, and a lot of classes, and especially PE and education. And she was doing her master's, and she was also a graduate assistant in the PE department. And so I said, "Look, I'm interested. I'm making plans to come back. I'm applying to get into the graduate program. I want to get my master's in education." I said, "But I'm also interested in graduate assistantship in the PE." And she was sharing some few things about it. And I asked her, I said, "Well, do you know if there's going to be any openings?" She said, "Yes, I know of one because I am not going to do it again next year." And she went on to say, "I will be glad to talk to Dr. Paul for you if you want me to." I said, "That would be wonderful." And he was a great professor. He loved teaching, and just a good jovial fella, make you laugh, and then he make you better get serious too. But so anyway, I applied and got into graduate school, and lo and behold, good Lord opened the door for me again. So now I became a graduate assistant in the PE department, where I taught golf, I taught badminton, I taught tumbling. Go figure on that one. I taught racquetball and volleyball. Those five different areas in the PE department. and that was great too. I had fun doing that, and I, again, I just said thank to the good Lord for the opportunity to do it because it was really expanding my horizon in a different way. Well, lo and behold, going back to that answered prayer, at the end of January or the early part of February of 1981, I believe it was President Dale Leake, who was the president at that time at Georgia Southern. He made the announcement that Georgia Southern was going to bring back football to this campus, and then went on to make the announcement that Ert Russell was going to be the new head coach. This place in Statesboro went ballistic. I'm telling you, that's all it was the talk of the town. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't, what's going on with the government or society. Football was the talk of the town, and Coach Russell was coming. And I said, "Oh man, this could be interesting." And so I was walking from our class where we had the golf class, and our office was in Hanner Fieldhouse. And I was walking by the tennis courts, and I saw Coach Russell on it. On the courts, and he loved tennis, but he wasn't. He wasn't. He was in between sets. I marched right through that gate. I went and introduced myself to him, and certainly shared with him that I'm really very interested in coaching football. And I took the approach saying, I don't know if you have not filled your staff yet. I would love the opportunity to just at least get to talk to you. He said, "Well, Steve," he said, "you see that door right yonder? If you come down in that door and down that hall, my office is down that hall. Come see me in the morning at 10 o'clock. I did. Had a great meeting with him. And toward the end, he shared with me, he said, "Well," he said, "to your point or your question yesterday about staff," he says, "No, I have not filled the staff. I've got my two coordinators, but I have not filled the staff, and I've got some boys that played up at Georgia for me. They will be joining us." And he said, "So, being that you have a burning desire to do it, and you know, it'd be a great opportunity, not for just for you, but for us, because I see that you're a passionate person about it, and I believe you have a competitive spirit." He said, uh, "We'll have a place for you on on the first Georgia Southern staff as we bring back football here."
That's awesome.
That's a true story. And there again, there's where God still provided for me. He, he, he knew still then that, hey, it didn't have to be high school. I could be a living, breathing, walking testimony to college students in a football uniform. But anyway, so I got to be on the first staff, and with some good coaches. And I just want to, Coach Russell has died, I think 2 weeks ago. He would have been 100 years old. And I owe him so much. And Chris, you probably remember back in the day when Georgia was doing good and Vince Dooley was the coach. One of the big talks of the town was everybody loved Coach Russell because he would headbutt his defensive players and blood be falling all down his
Yep.
forehead. Well, let me tell you this. I never saw him even come close to doing something like that. In my observation of working with him, day in and day out, to me, his greatest motivation in motivating other players, coaches, and players alike was his personableness. It didn't make a difference if you were the last trainer getting hired or the last manager toting bags and water or whatever. He knew their name, and And to this day, I don't understand it, but he had an innate ability to know if anybody on that team and in this program was struggling with something. And he would basically bring you in and let you know, hey, I understand you having a burden. You got a major burden going on. And if there's anything that I can do to help you. I say that because a true story. My mom, God bless her soul, she battled depression for a good portion of my life, especially preteen years, through the teen years, through college. And then lo and behold, one of the things that she feared most in life was that she would die of cancer. She feared cancer. And then she ended up having melanoma, which is an aggressive cancer. It metastasized, it moved throughout her body and ended up going to her brain. That led her to have surgery over in Augusta and to remove that cancer. She got to come on back home, but she was bedridden for basically most of the rest of her life. But I'd walk through her house and I'd hear her in there singing praises to the Lord. She still stayed connected to Him and placed her faith and trust in Him. And so Coach Russell knew about that. I mean, I had told him that she was having the surgery and all. And I was coming across the volleyball courts. Our office was a trailer right behind the old Hanner gym. And then on the other side of it was volleyball courts. And I was walking in there, coming in to go to work that day and watch film or whatever. And he nicknamed me, I guess it goes with Pennington. He just started calling me Penny. He said, Penny, come on, let me talk to you for a minute. So I walked in the door and he yelled, I said, Penny, Penny. He said, come on back here. I want to talk to you a minute. And Chris, I walked back there and I thought, he was going to talk football. I didn't know what he was going to talk about. And he said, Penny, he said, how's your mom? And Chris, and it getting emotional right now. Here's a man that was called to revive a program that had been non-existent since 1941. And he's got 1,000 things on his plate. And yet he called me in to ask how my mom was doing.
That's a big
And I
deal.
love that man. It is. I love that man and respected him greatly for that.
That means a lot. And
And,
most coaches
and
these days don't understand how important that is to have that relationship with the people you work with.
well, to your point, Chris, is that I think the real good coaches, they understand it. Because I'll just say this right here. The first time I met with Coach Helton, I was out at Bullock Academy. And we're getting ready for a playoff game that week. And one of his coaches, assistants, called and says, hey, Steve, Coach Helton, he's making his rounds, especially here in the local area, meeting coaches. And he just wanted me to ask to see if you were available, if you had some time or something today or whatever, he'd love to come by and see you. I said, well, we'll be on the field about 3, but we don't really get started about 3:20 or 3:30. Well, if he comes on out here to see us on the field, I'd love to meet him. So sure enough, he came by and very pleasant. I enjoyed talking with him. It was one of those situations, he talked a minute and a half and you say, this guy's all right. He asked me a question, Chris. He said, Steve, I understand you were on the first staff here with Coach Russell. I said, yes, sir, I was. He said, well, can you help me out a little bit? I said, yeah, I'll do the best I can. He said, what's happened? Why was Georgia Southern on the pinnacle? 6 national championships, even though it was a Division I AA, but 6 national championships. it created a lot of energy for the city of Statesboro and for Georgia Southern. What has happened? Why the downfall? And I said, Coach Helton, I said, I am so glad you asked me that because I am going to be glad to tell you, in my opinion, what happened. And I'll also tell you what probably I'll use it in the sense that where maybe you might could do the same thing. I said, Coach, you need some ERK boys. He said, ERK boys? He said, what's an ERK boy? I said, an ERK boy is one who has high expectations. And if you have high expectations of yourself, you're always pushing yourself to be your best. And I said, we didn't have scholarships. Back in the March of '81, we had bulletins and everything else all over the Georgia Southern campus that if boys wanted to try out for the football team, we were having walkout tryouts on such and such date. And we had over 100 guys show up, and we did all our tryouts and agilities and runs on the tennis courts. They don't, NIL wasn't even a thought of anybody. And again, these were walk-ons. No scholarships were provided whatsoever. And I said, an ERK boy is one that played the game because they loved it, not because they were getting money or scholarship or anything of that nature. They just loved it. And an ERK boy was always the first one that crossed that little bridge across Eagle Creek down there. And when they crossed it, they ran all the way to their coach, who was ready to start their group work. An ERK boy, in essence, too, was always the last one to leave the field. Always maybe talking to a coach, what I need to do to get better. I said, nowadays, and for the last several years, not only did we have a changeover in about 4 different coaches, because you need continuity coaching football, and it starts at the top. And you start changing that over and over, you have to reestablish a culture every time a new coach comes in. And so there's just been too many distractions along the way. And I said, you know what? I said, I just, that's just what I believe. And be honest with you, if I can help you pulling out some ERK boys, I'll be glad to do so. And I tell you what, we're playing Pinewood right over here, and they had a defensive tackle that turned around and play offensive tackle. He didn't ever come off the field. And I'm telling you right now, that guy is an ERK boy. And he would be somebody that you wouldn't ever worry. You wouldn't even have to come close to trying to motivate because his motor is always running. And I really believe that. That joker can do it. So anyway, that was our conversation. That was my first time I got to meet him. And one of these days, I'm going to have enough guts to ask him and say, hey, Coach, have you got any ERK boys out here on this team? I'll tell you, in my practices, I'll tell you one that's out there because I look for that. And I get to talk to some of these players or whatever and stuff. And, you know, Pat Douglas over there in Augusta, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
His youngest son, he's about 5'7", 5'8". I watched him last year, and he takes after his dad because Pat was a competitor, and he played great safety right here when I was here. And he had his sons played. They played there. Other older sons played down here at Southern. And John, I tried mightily to hire him at Statesboro High. I had a great position for him or whatever, and I think he opted to go try some experience in a small school, and I'm not sure where it was, a college. But yeah, but Pat's son, and I'm not sure what his name is. Hey, he loves it. He loves it. I mean, they running drills, they running wind sprints or whatever. You you might as well find him because he's gonna always be first in line. That's the kind of people you got to have, and not one who's looking for, hey, how much money you gonna pay me or whatever. And I think that's something that probably as society we have not done a good job to teach our young people the essence and the value of commitment and loyalty. Uh, our younger generation over the course of time, some people may think it's getting better, but for educators, and whether you're retired like me or you finishing up, we see it every day how how character and values have regressed, and people want something for nothing. That's not what life is meant to be. And as a coach, you don't walk out there on that field on a Friday night, and the other opposing coaches come over here and say, "Hey, uh, I'm gonna load up our team. We're gonna go on back home. Uh, I- I'm gonna forfeit this game tonight and award you the victory." That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And so I don't know. It's a situation there. Coaching is really a um, well, it's a great responsibility. I mean, there's as you well know, there are major highs and there's definitely major lows, and you have to, from a coach and a teacher to a husband to a parent, you got to be able to balance all those things out. And I'm fortunate enough to have a loving wife that is stuck with me thick and thin, and she was very patient. While, as you know, get through with practice, then you're gonna sit around and watch film and work on some more things there with the opponent, and you get home late. But I had to keep reminding my wife because she worked at Statesboro High. She was testing coordinator, but she was also 504 coordinator. She is one of the most organized people I ever saw in my life, know in my life. I'd probably be good that I should have hired her as an assistant because she'd have everything in line. But but the tide turned because I'm retired. I buy groceries and I plan the meals. And a good time, a lot of times I prepare the meals, and because heck, she wouldn't get home to sometimes a 6 or 6:30 because she is already planning for the next day, just as coaches do with their practice plans. And so, it's a tall task, but also I think from majority of coaches say it's been a rewarding task as well. And Chris, I'll tell you another thing here. I was very fortunate, even when I was at Louisville. I had some pretty good players there. Now, Ernest Thompson, he was a quarterback. He was 6'2", 220 pounds, and can throw the fool out of a football. But he didn't mind running it either. And being that I had some connections down here at Georgia Southern, and I kept telling these assistant coaches, and I even told Coach Ross, I said, here's a guy that he could help you somewhere. I said, he's playing quarterback for me. If y'all still running and all that option stuff or whatever, I'm not so sure it'd be the case. Well, they looked at him and kind of got impressed and came to visit him in Louisville at the high school. Well, they offered him. And so he came to Southern, and he was a backup to Tracy Ham. And speaking of Tracy, when we come to practice, Tracy, he's still actively involved. He really works with the athletic department. And I'm sure you remember uh, uh, Adrian Peterson,
Mm-hmm.
and that joker was one tough running back. Well, they were they were parts of those 6 national championship flags. But anyway, I hook up with them at every practice, and they get to telling stories. And like today, uh, Tracy came walking up, and he was eating some crackers. He said, "Man," he said, "back when y'all were coaching us, they should have arrested y'all." He said, "Y'all wouldn't even let us have any water." He said, "Out here now, they got fruit on the tables, they got cookies, they even got tea over there." He said, "Y'all wouldn't even give us water." I just started laughing. It made me laugh. And he he said, "Good gosh." He said, "The thing is, we didn't even have water bottles. We had to just drink. Had people lined up behind it. They had to drink some water out of a hose." And he said, "Man, we just sucking it down." He said, y'all ought to be ashamed of yourself." I said, I didn't have nothing to do with that." I said, "I didn't make that rule."
Yep.
But but they're so connected to Georgia Southern because of football. And and there's Tracy Ham's name over there on the facade on the home side up there on the upper deck where all the press boxes and all are. Uh, yeah, they love it, and they'll always be indebted to definitely Coach Russell. And that was another thing I meant to say. Those boys, walk-ons, uh, they played hard because they loved that man. They loved that man, and I don't know. I just think that's just a way of showing their love is because they knew that they were going to bust their rear end every play, every rep, every practice, every game in the weight room and all. Uh, but anyway, so that's where we were. And then after after I got my master's, I was with the football program, and I was looking around. I was interested in kind of getting in high school. Well, lo and behold, the principal at Louisville High, when I was there as a student, he called and asked me if I would, that they were going to have an opening. The coach there was going to resign that position, and asked if I'd be willing to talk to him and interview for it. I said, most definitely. So I did. I went and go with it. His name was Frank Gordy. He ended up being a superintendent, just one fine man. I'll tell you this much about him is that he was a principal. And I've told a lot of people and teachers that he did something I thought was very noble that you just don't see a lot of principals do. Not only did he do a good job with it, he loved teaching. And and so while I was there working, uh, at that time now I'm teaching. I was in high school because I was running the weight room for our players. Let me tell you how much he loved teaching. He he went from his principal. He still kept that job and that role, but he went and he taught chemistry and physics. And so he would go on one period a day and teach that the physics and or the chemistry class. I can't remember which one it was
Hmm.
because he loved it. And shoot, and he had good students or whatever. But how many principals just say, "Well, heck, I don't want to go back in that classroom. I don't want to go do this. I have to prepare the lesson plans and all this kind." No, he loved it. Uh, and so anyway, he hired me, and we uh, didn't we didn't have any hardly. I had one coach that held over, and he ran the offensive line for us and defensive line. Then I had to hire 2 other coaches. They were young, and so my role was then to kind of teach teach coaches and coach coaches before we even just think about coaching players. And again, Louisville High, they really struggled for 3 or 4 years. So we we created a little momentum that first year. And we might have won 2 or 3 games, and I know we tied one. I can't. Oh yeah, but I don't know if it was that year or not. But that was a good experience for me. It was a humbling experience for me because heck, I thought I knew something about coaching. Well, as an assistant at Georgia Southern, well, Coach Russell has a practice plan. Coach Healy, our defensive coordinator, he had a practice plan, and it was all laid out. I didn't have to make a practice plan. All I had to do is fill in what I was going to do from this time, beginning time to the end time. And in essence, Chris, as you well know, heck, you better be prepared. And so just learning to make a practice schedule, that's an art. And I took that art very seriously and really worked hard, as I mentioned way earlier. Details matter. And I was putting down all kind of fundamental drills for all the coaches to be doing because those fundamentals matter. And the details in doing them matter. So I think we may have finished the first year 3-6-1, but it was a productive 3-6-1. Our players didn't lose interest. They continued to fight to the end, and I credit them for that effort and that commitment to do so.
How long were you the
And
head
then
coach at Louisville?
I started when I was 25 years old. I don't know how many other 25-year-olds had started that way, but I did, and that's why I was saying, it might have done me even a lot better if I could have hooked up with somebody else and watched them operate things for a year or two. But it all worked out. The second year, I think, yeah, we did real well the second year, so much that our doggone community got involved in our board education. Our stadium, it wasn't very large. It wouldn't hold a lot of people. And so what we did, especially our booster club got involved. We moved our home side to where the visitors side was. And shoot, I'll tell you what, how people supported us. We had a prison there, a little state prison there in Louisville, and they were always doing something uh, for the those things like schools that deal with that are public oriented, and whether it's fixing roads or whatever. Well, heck, they had brick masons, people worked with cement and worked machines like lifts and stuff. So what we did, we just put it on the other side, and it was all concrete slabs. The prisoners built the walls. We had the measurements right. A cement company over in Sandersville made all um, the basically the seats. I think they were about 3 feet by about 8, and they had a crane and they put those seats, those slabs, on those walls, and that was kind of neat. It was just something to kind of wait. Well, hey, we ain't got to go over there and sit on the low seats where we can't even see over the players on the sideline, but they could now. And so it kind of we had some success, and it kind of revived the town a little bit. Our attendance, it certainly vastly improved because people knew that, hey, at least we were going to give a good effort, and we won some football games. So after I think 6 or 7 years at Louisville, Appleton County, it had come open down in Baxley. Uh, and they hired a coach from Alabama. And this is in late May and early June. And so I had some friends in Louisville whose family still lived in Baxley, and I kind of picked their brain to kind of figure out if they heard anything or whatever. And uh, come to find out, that coach that came from Alabama, he didn't stay but 3 or 4 weeks, and I think he packed up and went back. So the position was open again, and the principal, Carlton Walton, who is an athletic principal, he was all about that. He knew the value that athletics had, and he wanted good people in there. I don't know how he got my name, but he did, and I think I had already when it was open. I think I sent in an application. That might how he got it. Wanted me to come interview, and I did. And I really liked this man because I knew he would support me because it would be an AD, head football coach position, and run the weight room. Uh, so sure enough, I go meet with him. Great interview, and he recommended me. He told me he was going to recommend me for the job. He did. My wife and I rode to Baxley the day they were having that board meeting, and so we go to the board meeting. They introduce us, and the superintendent, who was a lady at that time, I wish she was there the whole time I was there. She she said we have a recommendation uh, presented to the board from Carlton Walton that he recommend to hire Steve Pennington as head football coach and athletic director for Appleton County High School starting this fall. And they voted, and it was unanimous. And so that's how it all started. So then I go to Baxley, and I was there for 6 years. I think they went through two superintendents from the one that had hired me, and so anyway, the superintendent was from Baxley. A lot of his friends that he played ball with there at the high school, their sons were on our team at that time. And of course, you know how things are. People will find something good for you about you, and then the next thing you know, they'll be ready to stab you in the back. And so I don't know what the deal was. All I know was I wasn't being recommended back uh, as a football coach and really as AD. Little did they know, little did they know what a blessing that was. It, and I don't mean that derogatory, but in a sense, uh, the way I looked at it, and the way again, of course, I had a good several talks with the good Lord at that time. I could still teach there. I just wasn't going to be a part of athletics. Is that at that time?
You were going to Ware County.
This, you're talking about. Somehow I had a lot of people tell you, Steve, you ought to write a book. We had an assistant principal down there was a basketball coach, and he had a son that played on the basketball team. Matter of fact, he played about on every game and every minute and every second of every game. But we had this little player, fullback. We put him in a fullback. I mean, he's probably 5'7" and 150 pounds, if that. He was walking. I was coming from the weight room, going to the front office, and he was in front of me. And 30, 40 yards. We walked across the parking lot, and I saw that basketball coach's son, and he kind of come together or whatever. And apparently they weren't sitting there and telling how much they loved each other or whatever. I think it got out of hand. And the coach's son I don't hit him or whatever. Well, not only this guy was a tough little old cookie at fullback, he was one heck of a wrestler. And he picked up that coach's son and slammed him on the back of a car. Well, the dad and the assistant principal coach, he saw it out his window. And he comes running out there and jumps on the little football player. Didn't do nothing to his son. And I said, well, that shows really what he's about. And so the I don't think the county board was real thrilled with that assistant principal. Uh, and and in a way, I think they had been looking for a way that they could relieve him of his duties. They were going to take that route. And sure enough, that happened. Uh, he was let go. It wasn't at the end of the year. It was right then and there. Get all your stuff out of your office and clean it out. Here's a true story. 2 weeks later, my neighbor across the street calls early on a Saturday morning, and my wife picks up the phone, and I hear her saying, "Do what? Do what?" The, the gym is on fire, or the field house, or whatever. And and uh, and then I got on the phone, and I said, "What's going on, Glenda?" She said, "I just want to let you know, since you coach up there, uh, somebody set the gym on fire."
Good gracious.
Well, that's how things kind of get misconstrued. It wasn't the gym. So I jump up, man. I mean, I jump up. I put on my clothes. I'm running out the door, flying down the street. And thank goodness, it only take me 4 minutes to get to the school. I come down the highway toward the school. It's a 4-lane. I look down and I see a huge flame, smoke going up everywhere. It was across the street from the school. That was the board of education. Flames as high as this doggone Tippins building over here at Georgia Southern. I get to the school and I look over and I said, well, darn, the gym's sitting right there. It's not on fire. And I go just a little bit further and I look down at the end of the track down there on the back side of the gym, and our field house. Our trucks is down there, smoke's coming bellowing out of the field house, which contained our weight room, which is on the second floor, that's poor planning. They should have never put it up there. And I said, good gosh, what is going on? Darn. Board of Education is burned slam to the ground.
Mm.
And now that's why they said the gym. No, it wasn't the gym. It was the field house.
Oh, no.
And they built it. We had a locker room in there and a weight room. And then they put a rubber basketball court in there for basically PE. It was also a PE facility because they only had that one old gym. Well, Lomo, I hope I'm not talking too much. My wife and sons think I do. Here's what happened. That basketball coach, he took off on a Thursday or Friday and went to a basketball clinic in Atlanta. And I think he took a girlfriend with him or whatever. And on that Friday night, late Friday, he had rented a car. Now, keep in mind, get the picture. He's registered at the basketball clinic. He's meeting and greeting some of his old buddies and everybody. He's making sure everybody sees him. And then that night, around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, they get in the car and they drive back to Statesboro. They break into our field house and broke in our daggum equipment room, doused everything in gas, went over to the board office, broke in there, doused it with gas, and then came back over to the school, broke into the front office, broke into the principal's office, because he didn't care for our principal, doused it with gas. And then they went out the back door of school, got in the car, and then went flying down highway. I'm not sure what it was, toward Alma, and got pulled over by a sheriff or a state patrol. And so it was all planned out pretty good, but it didn't help him because of the fact the investigators, they got down to it and got to the nitty gritty and saw that he and that lady, uh, they were the ones. I just didn't wasn't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And because I think when they arrested him, I mean pulled him over, they looked in the car and I think found some gas cans or whatever. Plus he was speeding. They said he was speeding big time.
So was that when you
So
went to
that was
Ware
experience
County?
there. You know, and sometimes you just have to bear it. But we didn't have helmets. We didn't have shoulder pads or anything. Uniforms, the whole works. And a guy named Benny James, he runs a sports shop there in Waycross. And I called him and told him, I said, man, we got to have something so we can have some spring practice. Shoot. He had connections all over the place. And next thing you know, we had about 85 brand new helmets, all new practice stuff, jerseys, pants, girdles, you name it. And then we also had to get some new uniform, game uniforms. But
So
that just goes with the territory. You know, you're going to run into some struggles sometime. But
after Appling is when you went to Ware County, right?
and so then, uh, I wasn't going to be invited back. I mean, it didn't. I mean, I wasn't going to be recommended to come back. And so Ware County at that time, they had Waycross High School dropped their charter. And then there's Ware County High. Out of the two schools, Ware County was the only one that was receiving state funds for the school. And when Waycross dropped its charter, those students had to go somewhere to school. And so then Ware County, late, I guess, late 80s, started building a big school down there so that both could go to the school. And so now they consolidated the two schools, I think somewhere around 1993 and 94. It was basically 1970 all over again, integration all over again. And the superintendent called me and asked if I'd come down and meet with them, and I did. Went pretty doggone good. So much that in a week or two, they called me back and asked if I'd come back for another interview so I could meet with Board of Education and they could ask me questions too. I did that. And I asked a question to the superintendent. I said, under the circumstances, the community has really been through a major trial with these two schools coming together because Waycross folks don't like Ware County folks, and Ware County folks can't stand the Waycross folks. There's a lot of friction here. How many years will you give me to try to get it on the right path? He held up his left hand and he said, 5. I give you 5 years. Chris, he gave me 3. I mean, we didn't have a great record by any stretch of the imagination. But, plus playing Valdosta, playing Lowndes, playing Colquitt, playing Tiff, playing Bainbridge. And put it this way, if we'd had a winning record playing against those jokers, gee whiz, that would have been something. And but we made progress that's not on the scoreboard. Heck, my first year there, I mean, beating the Hogs down. Most players we had was 48. But we were diligent and continued to pursue and look for athletes and people getting the weight room. The second year, hey, we had 98 players. And the third year, we ended up over 100. So we were making strides in bringing the program back. It just wasn't showing up on the scoreboard.
Right.
And the superintendent came to see me after the third year in the season, and my office was there in the gym. And he said, Steve, he said, I know it's been a tough go here for these last 3 years. And he said, I'm just going to let you know that the board is really catching a lot of complaints from the community about the direction our football program is going. And which I can understand that. They have a right to do that, especially if the sons are playing. He said, what I'm coming to talk to you about and to share with you is that because things are not going as well as we hoped, he said, the first thing I'm going to share with you is that I'm just laying it out for you, is that you're going to have to let your coach that you brought with you, you're going to have to let him go. And if you don't do this, from the board's perspective, and their attitude is that if you don't let him go, then you will either need to resign your position or the board is prepared to terminate you. Well, folks, whoever's listening to this right here, I believe to the core of my being, one of the greatest qualities of character is loyalty. Loyalty. And this coach had been with me for 12 years. I hired him at Louisville. He was there the whole time. We moved to Baxley. He was there the whole time. Moved his wife and little son, baby there, moved them. And one heck of a coach. Hard nosed, pushing you, and would not accept anything other than their best. He pushed those players and he made them very good players. He was tough, but in the end, everywhere we went, his offensive line loved it. Loved it. And no way, form, or fashion was I'm going to sit here and say I got to let you go. Not for the benefit so that the doggone board would get out of terminating me. And that in its own right, was another blessing that the good Lord sent upon me. And I say that to say this. I'm going to be brief. After that happened, Peach County was in our region when I was at Apple. So the principal knew me. He called me. Their coach had left or whatever and said they had an opening and we'll know if I'd be interested in interviewing. I said, yes, sir. So I went to Fort Valley, met with him. Things went real well. Come back in a couple of days, I really enjoyed our interview, our time together. And I see some qualities in you, unfortunately, that we lack over here. And we need people kind of like you. And I guess he referred to character because, Chris, I say this quite often. We had great success at Statesboro High School. And I credit a great deal of that prosperity and that success to the players' character that they possessed. They knew from right from wrong. They knew what commitment was about. They knew what team stood for. They knew what respect was all about. And they knew what commitment and loyalty was all about. And I share this quite often, if I had a choice, would you want players with high character or would you want players who have great athletic skill and a great athletic ability? Without hesitation, I said, I'll take a character guy any day of the week. Because a character guy reminds me of an art boy. They'll do what they need to do. And I call it the 80-20 rule, Chris. On our teams where we were doing real well and we were winning and we were in the playoffs, 80% of our team were people of character. 20% still struggle with buying into what we're doing. And they would do anything they could to try to pull some of the character down to them, but they wouldn't budge. Their attitude was saying, look, if you don't like it, get out. We're here to win football games. We're here to win a state championship. And we're not going to let you pull us down to your level, because we will never win another game with the way you behave and care. And so character pushes people to have higher expectations of themselves. And we had that. Coach Justin Houston, that was a man of character. Here's a true story. He was a senior, already signed to go to University of Georgia. He didn't have to work in the weight room. He could have left school every day at 12 o'clock and went and got a job and worked. But he didn't miss a single day in that weight room until he graduated. And he worked as hard as he ever did. I can tell you what, those other players, freshmen, sophomore, and juniors in there, they saw it. And on the last day, because we would match by it basically every week, but on the last day of school, if we had, finals and all, which now they last 2 hours, we had a max day on that day. And Justin Houston, he put 415 pounds on a bar to power clean. And he kind of got rested. He got good and loose and warmed up, whatever. And so he said, Coach, he said, I think I'm ready. I said, all right. I blew my whistle and got all the players to be quiet and get around like an amphitheater. Justin walked up there. He was calm, poised, but yet confident. He bent his knees, dropped his butt, put his hands on the bar. And you could tell he was focused. He was bent and determined he was going to lift that weight. And sure enough, he decided, I guess the green light came on, and he threw that 415 pounds up in front of all those players and students in that weight. He went wild. He went wild. That's a person who demonstrated great character because he exercised it on the practice field. He exercised it on Friday nights. And then he turned around at 6'3", 250 pounds, may have been one of the best point guards on the basketball team I've ever seen. He demonstrated on the basketball team, always encouraging other teammates. And because he said, look, I'm going to the University of Georgia. I want to be as strong as I can be, and I'm going to work. I'm going to still work in this weight room. I don't have to, but I'm going to do it because I'm going to prove my worth when I go to Athens. Lo and behold, he gets to Athens and he starts working in that weight room up there. And they going at it because they're going to push him hard up there. And in the end, they have max days. He's a freshman now. He's a freshman. He put a few more pounds on than just the 415. And when it's return to go, he threw that weight up just as well as he did in high school on the last day that he graduated. And I think he set a record for power clean up there. Great athlete. Then he got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think broke a record of sacks for Chiefs up there. Stayed with them 3 or 4 years. I think he got a championship Super Bowl ring. Then he went to Baltimore, played there a couple of years. And he's got a beautiful wife and beautiful children. He's got it. And I'm hoping that we as coaches led him to see things can be as good as you want them to be if you're just willing to put some effort in.
Well, Coach, you spent your career building character.
Yeah. We knew we had a pretty good senior class coming back, all character people too. Yeah, I mean, just super guys. They were all juniors, Justin's senior year, and that year in oh 04, we played uh, Warner Robins, I think in the state semifinals at Womack Field at Statesboro High School, and Warner Robins deservedly so. They were the better team that night, and they won the ball game. Great coach. Brian Way is the coach over there. He loves the Lord. He's going to do things the right way. He's certainly a man of character and one whom I greatly respect. And he had his team prepared to, to beat us. We fought hard, and kept it close through the middle to the end of the third quarter. And then they pulled a little away right there toward the end of the game in the fourth quarter. So now that junior class, being the football season's over with, from a football standpoint, now they are basically defined as a senior. They graduated from juniors. Now they're seniors. It's in their pool and in their court now where they lead this team to prosperity because they were part of it. So we start right now. We after that last game in early December '04, we get started right back in that weight room in January when we come back for the second semester. And boys are working pretty doggone good. I was really proud because there wasn't no playing around or whatever. They were focused, and we kept pushing. We're going to get stronger. We are going to get stronger, bigger. And that 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 class, that senior class, it was loaded with character. David Cohn was our quarterback. He's 6'6", could throw the football immensely, just super, and he loved doing it. He ended up signing and going to Michigan to play up there in Michigan, and he would have been the perfect fit because what they do, they run it, and then what's the next thing to do? Play action pass. He was the perfect fit for it. I don't know if that coach retired or he fired him or he went somewhere else, but anyway, that was when Rich Rodriguez was at West Virginia running all that spread out stuff. And so Michigan hired him. Well, that wasn't David Cohn's forte. He's going to be a straight drop back passer, play action guy, can roll out, had a good arm. And, but anyway, what I am proud of, Michigan, I kind of find out, is one of the top universities in the country. He stayed there and got his degree and is doing well. Matter of fact, you're talking about doing what you're doing here. He does the same thing in Nashville. He's got his own podcast, he and two other guys in Nashville. So, and I know he's doing real well. So we start out and we start on a good note, winning the first 2 or 3 ball games, and that gives you a lot of momentum. So we won a few more, and we kept on going until we got to the playoffs. And I can't remember who we played first. It might have been Southwest DeKalb. I'm not sure. But anyway, we went to get on a charter bus and go to Atlanta and play in the Mercedes-Benz Dome against Griffin. And we'd played them a couple of years before, too. And heck, I know twice they beat us. But we were playing in that dome that night against them. They had some great running backs, well coached. And it was nip and tuck, buddy. I mean, just hard-nosed defensive game. And they were moving the ball on us. We had the lead. They were moving the ball on us, and they completed the pass, and our safety just rocked that receiver on about the 2 or 3 yard line, going in. And So they come down there and they were running this play. They send one of those wings in motion and then kind of like a quick pitch to him and get to the corner. Well, they had been doing it the whole drive down there. And he had a great corner named Creighton Wilkinson, another character guy. He was on our side. And I'm going as far as I could in the coach's box, and I'm screaming at him. I said, if that guy comes in motion to you, you go. You go. And he heard me. And so as that guy started coming in motion, Creighton, he snuck up to the line of scrimmage. And when they snapped that ball, he shot like he was like shot out of a cannon. He came just barreling in there and waylaid that running back, and that ball went flying up in the air on the ground and whatever. And fortunately, Justin Houston, of all people, he recovered the ball, and he was so fired up he could have done 3 backflips coming off the field. That that team, and those seniors. Let me give you a history. In 2003, we had to drive to Atlanta and play Marist. They were running Georgia Southern's offense. Sean McVay, who's the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, he was the quarterback. And I can tell you, he could run the option. He could read it with the best of them. But also, he could flat throw the football. And that was a cold, cold night. And Marist got the best of us. And so we got back on the bus and turned on the heater and rode back to Statesboro. And then, let's see here. What was that? Oh, I think that was a semifinal game. And so then the next thing's up is the doggone state championship. We're 14-0. And I believe Northside Warner Robins was 14-0. And we all know in Georgia, especially coaches, know that kind of program they had there. And it's been them and Warner Robins, and I mean, just back and forth. Great programs. So it worked out that basically our stadium, they wouldn't let us, in which I think we could hold about 5,000 or 6,000 at Womack Field. But it worked out that Georgia Southern was kind and gracious, as well as the athletic department. They offered to host the state championship over here at Paulson, and which we were kind of thrilled for. And so here we were. I mean, coaches, they spent some extra hours that week in the preparation stages. Our guys, they had a calm confidence all week long at practice, worked hard, paid attention, did what was asked of them to do. And so here we are. It's game day. And I think we played on a Friday night. And let me tell you what, you may keep up with some Georgia Southern football, but this athletic department, they are big on this power of Paulson. And I got to do an interview the other day because I got reserved seats for all home games, and I got a little package going on saying, hey, my seat's my story. And so you can tell about experiences and coming to Paulson and watching the Eagles play and how the power of Paulson really energizes the team. And so that night at the state championship game, our side, because we only have one level and that's down below, it was packed. I mean, packed. Northside brought a great crowd. It was packed. It was one unbelievable night of high school football game. I mean, that's what it's all about. It was just to be in that moment. We had a great pregame. Boys had a little energy about themselves, focused, patting each other on the back. They were excited. So we send them on in. They go in the locker room. I get caught up with GPB television at the end of the end zone and answer a few questions. And so then I go on and go to the locker room. I open the door. It is stark stone cold silent. Silence. And I couldn't tell you when that has ever happened. They wasn't jiving around, wasn't cutting up, wasn't that. They were just sitting side by side, some with their heads back on a locker with their eyes closed. They were just focused, focused. And I told myself, I said, these jokers here ready to play. And so I just savored the moment. I just kind of got off to a side over there and stayed silent with them. I read this somewhere, Chris, or heard it from some coach. But while it was quiet, I took my marker pen out of my pocket, got on the whiteboard, and I wrote this on the board. To get something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before. That's all I put on the board. And then everybody's eyes got put on me. And then I shared with them that statement. Men, especially you seniors, you played for the championship in '03 at Marist. We didn't get it done. We played in '04 at Little Mac and got beat by Warren Robins. We didn't get it done. But I'm here to tell you tonight, seniors, your third year in a row playing for the Quad A state championship. The third year in a row. To get something you never had before, you have to do something you never done. Men, seniors, and you young folks behind them, you take a long look around this locker room and you watch these players on this field tonight. Because tonight we're going to do something led by our seniors on their third and final chance to win a state championship. We're going to walk off that field with that trophy tonight. We're going to do something we've never done before, and that's win a state championship. And heck, Chris, all I can say is that might have been one of my proudest moments. Those guys played their rear end off and needed it. We kicked a field goal with 7 seconds to go in the game to go up 13-10. We had to kick off, and then we say, hey, we got to make a tackle. Make a tackle in the field. Victory will be ours. We kicked off. Running back, whoever it was, he had speed, and he was moving all over, and he was gaining ground every step. Clock ticking down. Tick, tick, tick. We finally tackled a guy on around the 35 or 40-yard line. Horn going off because the clock now is 0, 0, 0. And in my interview, I shared that story I just shared right here on this podcast. And I said, the lady asked me, she said, do you have an experience in which you can recall how the power of Paulson impacted your team? And I said, that night, we walked off that field as champions. And we had a great crowd and supporters who were behind us 100%. I said, tonight, that winning the 2005 state championship at Paulson Stadium is evidence. There's power in Paulson. And I'm all for it, because my son and I, we get our reserved seats. We're on the upper deck. We're on the 50-yard line on the top row that you can get to. And the reason being is that because the coach in me wants to analyze the game. If you're down low, you're confined to what all you can see. And so we're up there, and we see a pass play open up, see the doggone receiver running a great post. Nobody's around. I'm screaming, throw the football to the post. So we see it all, and we get to analyze it. And that's a thrill in its own right, and it keeps my competitive spirit going. And these folks, this community, they rally around Saturday night football in Statesboro, Georgia. I can tell you that right now. And we get started 3 weeks from this Saturday. Hey, Chris, if you get a chance, come on down here, man. It'd be a great day. So that's kind of where we are. That kind of touched a number of variety of things. I do not want to dismiss the spiritual aspect of what I shared because, again, going back to 2005, 2001, I was a defensive coordinator. We beat Dalton for a state championship. Then we lost 3 in a row with Marist, Warner Robins, and I forget who the other one was. But anyway, we beat Northside. And that's why I say my greatest claim to fame isn't winning a football game, not even winning a championship game. My greatest claim to fame, which I'm so grateful for, is the undeserved grace that I received from my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I have the promise of salvation. And I look forward to that time when the good Lord comes, takes me home. And because, hey, there's a place there. We're going to have the ultimate peace.
Well, Coach, you started out wanting to go into the ministry, and you ended up getting to go into the ministry, just a different kind of way than most people get to do. You were a man of character, and you built men of character, and I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Well, I appreciate you having me.